The FDA approved the drugs in 1987. Then a federal safety monitor opened a sealed data envelope in April of 1989, and the numbers inside showed these drugs were killing heart patients at twice the rate of a sugar pill. So why did hundreds of thousands of Americans keep taking them for another year after that envelope was opened? After a heart attack, your heart misfires. It beats out of rhythm, ventricular arrhythmias, cardiologists call them. Irregular beats you can see on an EKG. Dangerous enough, the logic went to cause sudden death. By 1987, the FDA had approved a class of drugs, encainide, flecainide, morphine, specifically to suppress those irregular beats. They worked. You gave the patient a pill, ran the EKG, and the aberrant beats vanished. The drug did exactly what it said. Cardiologists were prescribing them to hundreds of thousands of patients. The American Heart Association endorsed them. The textbooks included them. This was not a fringe treatment. This was the standard of care. The trial was called CAST, the Cardiac Arrhythmia Suppression Trial. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute launched it in 1987 to confirm what everyone already believed, that suppressing the arrhythmias would reduce deaths. You fix the abnormal signal, you prevent the fatal event. That logic has a name, surrogate endpoint. Treat the measurable marker, assume you're treating the disease. CAST was designed to prove it. Researchers enrolled more than 1,700 patients recovering from heart attacks and split them. Half got the antiarrhythmic drugs, half got placebo. They were supposed to follow them for years. They followed them for 10 months. In April of 1989, the study's independent safety board, researchers legally required to monitor for patient harm, opened the interim analysis. The finding was a single table. The drug group's death rate was more than twice the placebo group's death rate. The drugs were working. The EKGs were clean. The arrhythmias were gone. And the patients were dying anyway at more than twice the rate of the people swallowing nothing. The safety board voted to halt the trial that week. Their memo, dated April 17, 1989, stated that continuing would be, in their language, unethical. The 3 lead investigators were summoned and handed the data. One of them later said the news felt like a physical blow because the logic had been airtight. You saw the arrhythmia on the monitor, you suppressed it, the patient felt better. The follow-up EKG was clean, every step of that chain was real. What the sealed envelope proved was that every step of that chain was beside the point. Removing the symptom was not the same as removing the danger. But here is what nobody asked in public, had someone already known that. Here is what never made it into the prescribing guidelines, sitting in 100,000 patient charts. Before CAST launched, there were smaller preliminary studies, pilot trials, signal work, the early data that shapes a major trial design. Some of them had noticed a trend. A mortality signal, not statistically significant at any single site, not large enough to trigger a regulatory hold, but present across multiple datasets. Those studies were submitted to the FDA inside the drug approval packages. Encainide's package, filed by Eli Lilly, runs several thousand pages. But the second buried detail is the one that makes coincidence stop being an explanation. Page 1847 of the Eli Lilly submission contains a data table. In the column marked cardiovascular deaths, the drug arms number is higher than the control arms number. The notation next to it reads, not statistically significant. A federal reviewer's signature appears at the bottom of the page. That signature cleared the finding. The drug was approved December 1987. Flecainide, manufactured by 3M Pharmaceuticals, had been approved 2 years earlier in 1985. By the time CAST was halted in 1989, Flecainide alone was reaching an estimated 200,000 Americans annually. After the trial stopped, 2 independent epidemiologists, working separately, used post-market surveillance data to back-calculate excess deaths. Both arrived at the same range, between 40,000 and 70,000 excess deaths per year attributable to antiarrhythmic drugs between 1987 and 1991. Per year. The entire American death toll in Vietnam was 58,000 over a decade. The FDA's public statement when the trial halted described the decision as a precautionary measure while data was further evaluated. The drugs were eventually walked back. Encainide was voluntarily withdrawn from the U.S. market by 1991. Flecainide survived, still prescribed today, now restricted to specific indications with a different claimed risk profile. The surrogate endpoint problem became a case study in every medical school. The FDA reformed approval standards to require harder endpoints. None of those reforms answered what the paper trail still shows. The mortality signal existed in the Eli Lilly submission before the agency approved the drug for 200,000 people a year. The reviewer who signed page 1847 cleared it as not clinically significant. That determination was made. The drug was cleared. The years between 1987 and 1991 happened. Cast closed the file. The official story is that the system caught the error and corrected itself. Maybe that is the whole story. But the question the correction never formally answered is a narrow one. Who signed that table? What threshold did they apply? And what became of them after 1991? That question is not in the trial record. It has not been asked under oath. The file is closed. The signature is still there.